Good evening, good evening, good evening to everyone as you come in. I know we're on here late tonight, but I had some thoughts I wanted to share with you all tonight. I want to get your feedback. Get your feedback. Let me just do some order of operations as we get ready to talk tonight about the thought process of not letting your moment define your response, not letting the moment determine your response. Let me know where you're watching from tonight as you're coming on. I will not hold you long tonight, but I had this thought today based off a conversation. I wanted to get your thoughts on it tonight. Wherever you're watching from, let me know where you're watching from tonight. We want to uh, hear from you. We're grateful to have you tonight. Um, so, Today, I was having a conversation with my associate, and we're going through the book, I Am a Church Member. We're going through the book, I Am a Church Member. And in the book, I Am a Church Member, they are currently talking about how we are one body in Christ. And in the book, it tells this story. It tells this story about a man that has a bad reaction in the church. He has a bad reaction in the church, and from that response, from that moment in the church, he has this response that he's going to give. He's going to throw in the towel. He's going to step away from the church, and he is going to leave it. And I started talking because I have this philosophy that although your feelings may not be everyone else's reality, it does not mean that your feelings are not valid. And so, as we were talking, it came into my heart. But how do we not allow the moments in our life to define our responses, to determine our responses? I mean, you know the saying, today I had a bad day. What makes the day bad? Is it the happenstance that happened in the day? Is it your emotions of responding to what happened in the day? And so we look at church. There's a viral video going around from a pastor, well-known pastor, and he talks about how we've never heard of work hurt. We've never heard of doctor hurt. We've never heard of this hurt. He said when one person messes up in the church, you cannot determine the whole church based off that one moment in time, that one action. You cannot allow your response to condemn everyone. And so I want to share with you tonight from the pastor's point of view, some things that sometimes goes through the pastor's mind. And as we allow moments to define our responses, we allow one moment to define our responses. And so I have to start this off by telling you a story. Years ago, I was mad at a particular situation, and I had to seek counsel. And for those that are first watching this, let me not skip this. Welcome to the Pulpit View, where my name is Stephen Garrett. I have pastored and served for almost 20 years. I have been in leadership for over 20 years, and I have been married for 18 years. And I want to welcome you, and wherever you're watching from, let me know where you're watching from, and I want to tell you thank you for joining us tonight. So, years ago, I was in a situation where one or two people were being very divisive in the church, very divisive in the church. They were spreading falsities, rumors, and I was mad. I was angry. I was hurt. I wanted to react. And so I spoke to my pastor, and he tells me the story of how one Sunday he allowed his emotions to get the best of him. And in allowing his emotions to get the best of him, he goes on to say something within the sermon context. And he was a young pastor at the time, and he says it was a mistake. He said, because I took that moment, he said, to address a few people by addressing the multitude. And I want to tell you something. I think sometimes we can take one person's action and allow that to be the controlling factor of our response to everyone else. We allow one person who hurt us to control the way we respond to everyone else who wants to love us. We allow one person who lied on us not to share anything with anyone else from here on out because I've been lied on before or someone has told my secrets before. And so he says, after he got done with the sermon, that he comes up to a young lady comes up to him and she shares with him her heart. And she says, Pastor, most of us love you. Don't allow the few to control the way you handle it. And I want to tell you something today, because this week, these last 3 weeks have been a doozy. These last 3 weeks have been a doozy. Not really in ministry or in work, but just in life, right? And we have to ask ourselves, how are we responding to the moments of our life? Are we allowing the moments to make us draw in when we should be going and really throwing it all out there? Are we allowing the moments to make us quake when we really should be at that time the most confident? And I want to share this with you because in the Bible there's a story in Exodus where there's a story. I want to say it's Exodus, either Exodus or Numbers. But here it is. Exodus, Deuteronomy. It may have been Deuteronomy, but here it is. Moses sends the spies over. Someone put in the text for me where it is. I'm about to find it. Y'all bear with me. I got to find it because I got to make sure you all get it. I have it right for you all. So Moses sends the spies, and what happens is they come back with different reports. And the reports are this. The reports are this. Numbers 13. Moses sends the spies out, and what happens is he sends 12 spies from the 12 tribes, and they come back with the report. 10 of them have a bad report. 2 of them say, listen, the land is ripe for the taking. 10 of them says, we saw the land flowing with milk and honey, but we also saw giants with razor sharp teeth. Then there's 2 that says, we see a land that's ready for us to take. And why am I using that particular text, Numbers 13? It is because many of us see a moment in our life, but we respond differently than someone else. I want to challenge you tonight from the leadership perspective, because when I was going through that moment, I had an opportunity to really exert myself in that moment as an authoritarian. And really go in and say, oh, well, this is how we're going to do it. And I have the pool and, all of that bravado that some of us may do. But it was because of the wisdom that my pastor shared in that moment that I was able to not let a moment determine how I was going to respond. And I want to share with you as you're going through life, this is really just a chat tonight. As you're going through life, I want to share with you to not let these moments that are happening, the bad days, the good days, the wins or the losses, to determine or define the way you respond. Here it is. It is in our wins that we are validated in the work that we've done. But if we become comfortable in our wins and allow ourselves to say, okay, because I've won, I don't have to do the same amount of work. You're bound to lose. It's in our losses that we are developing, and we're working on the areas of our life that we have found not all the way complete. We found some areas of our life lacking. I tell people all the time, much of the wisdom that God has blessed me with comes from the failures in life. And no, I did not say the lessons learned. I'm talking about the times where I know I should have done it a different way, but I only reaped a lesson from it. That's the only thing I reap from it. And here it is. There are some areas in my life that I must say that I allowed fear to carry me over. And here it is. The time that I shared my thoughts, I lost that person. So I stopped sharing my thoughts, right? I allowed a moment to silence my voice. I allowed a moment to make me come and recoil back in. And I want to share with you tonight a lesson in leadership. The moment can never be your full measure of how you determine how you're going to respond, because moments change. Moments are just there, just that, moments. They're not going to be consistent. You're going to have some wins and you're going to have some losses. But many of us pivot because of the loss when we should stay consistent. Many of us pivot when we should stay consistent. I remember Grant Cardone saying something on a live about how he fired over 200 employees because of the pandemic. He said, now what was surprising is they made more that year. Even if they had kept them, they would have made more that year. He did the numbers. Even if they had kept them, he made more that year. He said, but it was a brash decision I made. And he says it as if I had to make the decision. But many of us are jumping and making decisions based off of a moment, and we have not seen the full process of what God wants to do in our life. What do I mean? Me and my son's in a class, and in the class, he has a mock marriage. And so we were just talking about this. In fact, he has a mock marriage in the class. They got to roll the dice to see how many kids they have. It's just something fun for them to have. And in the mock marriage, they're coming up to part of it where you can determine if this moment you want to have a divorce or not. And so he said, "Daddy, I'm thinking about dropping my wife in the class." And I said, "What?" My wife sent him to me. I said, "What makes you want to drop your wife?" He said, "Daddy, I'm broke." He said, "In the class, I'm not making enough to support my family." I said, "Well, son, let me tell you something." I said, "If you drop her now, you'll have even less." He said, "What do you mean, Daddy?" I said, "Well, she's not been working in the mock presentation you have." I said, "So she's going to get alimony and child support." I said, "And guess what? If you had nothing now, nothing from nothing leaves what? Nothing." Somebody knows the song. And so I told him, I said, sometimes we can make a rush decision because we feel we're pent up against the wall. And I want to share with you as we're, I told you I'm not going to hold you long tonight. As I want to share with you that take time. John C. Maxwell, I forget what book it was, but he says in one of his books, he says that you should take time to rest before you make a decision. He said, take time to rest before you make a decision. Another author says you should always go to sleep on the problem if it happens on that day before you make a rush to judgment. Here's why I'm telling you this. Because many of us, we make the decision based off the problem and not based off the solution. What do you mean? What do you mean that you make the decision based off the problem and not the solution? Right now, I'm having to get a lot of car work done, right? A lot of car work done. I have been literally in a rent-a-car for 3 weeks. It's getting on my last nerve, right? And I can't stand giving folk this type of money, right? And so I've been in this rent-a-car for this time, and we getting all this stuff done. And the first thought that wanted to run to my mind was, we need to just go get another car. And then after I went to sleep on it, I said, okay, we might need another car, but what are we going to do with this car? And here it is. Here's the reason why, because we've been planning on making some other moves. And I'm like, if we do this and we are rushed to judgment, then we'll do something that hinders us. It will fix the problem, but it will never take care of the solution. It will never ultimately get us to our goal, because it ends up creating another problem. And I want to share with you, some of us are so quick to let the moment in time be what shifts everything we do. We're so quick to let that argument that we had with our wife, our spouse, our husband, be the determining factor of if we're going to stay in the relationship. And now we're 5 years out of the divorce, and we regret the decision we made. We wish we could go back. We wish we could turn it around, but we cannot turn it around because we made a decision in a moment. We allowed it to determine how we would respond to the situation. We allowed the fact that the job did not give us the time off when we wanted the time off to say, you know what, I quit. Instead of saying, hey, we need to renegotiate how things are going. And because I've done the work, because I have the evidence, we need to renegotiate, because the problem is not that they wouldn't give you the time off. The problem is that you didn't give them a heads up enough, or that there was no lines of demarcation placed in your job qualifications, in your job requirements. You told them they had full access to you, and you didn't tell them, when I take vacations, these are my vacation times. And these are non-negotiables. In the book Servant Leader, I'm doing right now, I'm doing little mini TED Talks for Hyatt Hotel, and I'm going through this book Servant Leader. And in the book Servant Leader, he talks about how many times what we're doing overall is we are making decisions without having the full understanding of why we're making the decisions, And so we'll let a moment determine how we're going to handle it. We'll give up because of this moment. So in the book, he says this, he says, every employee is a volunteer. He says that. It messed me up. It messed me up in the book. He says, every employee is a volunteer. I want to share this with you. He says, and one of the students that are being talked to in the moment of this class, he said, but they're getting a check. He said, they're getting a check to get a task done. They're not getting a check for their skill set. He said, because there's some intangibles that are coming to the table that they do not have access to. They have your mind, they have your way of talking to people. He said they have your problem-solving skill, and all of these you are giving for free. And some of them you're giving on times that you are not at work, because you are still problem-solving even though you clocked off. You have not turned your brain off from that situation. So you're still volunteering something that that job cannot afford to pay you. We live in a day and age. This is in the 1990s that this book was written. Here it is. This is in a time before creators. We are living in a time that people are literally getting paid just for their problem-solving skills, literally getting paid just for their creativity. They are there and they are making wealth because they are able to have some things that jobs cannot pay for. I am getting paid because I have a skill set of communication. Here it is. What I'm telling you is that there are some things that we are unable to put a quantitative amount to. And so The problem is when we're dealing with the moment can look so big. The moment can look so big. The moment can look so big. There's a picture that I have. I love this picture. And I don't know if I have it on my phone, but I'm going to show it to you. If I can show it to you and you allow me to show it to you, I want to show you this picture. It's a simple picture, but it's a profound picture. It's a profound picture. I love this picture. It does something for me. It does something for me that I really don't know if there's anything like it. Here it is. This picture right here. Now, everyone can tell this is a flame. If you can see it, it's a flame. It's a flame. But I zoomed in. As I zoomed in more, you lose sight of what the picture is. It just looks like a white screen. I want to share that with you because I think sometimes we see something as small as a flame, not the forest on fire, but we see something as small as a flame, and we don't really comprehend that we still are in control of that flame. All I had to do with this thing is blow it out. All I had to do was blow it out. It was literally the size of a candlestick. It wasn't a torch. It was a candle. It was a candlestick flame. It wasn't big at all. But when I zoomed in, the size increased. I think sometimes we have caused our moments to be zoomed in. We draw ourselves in, and we really look at it as if that moment can really control everything about us. Pastor that I follow, I won't say his name because he might be watching, but he shared today a church that he had formerly pastored, and he said something so profound. In it, he said, I remember being at this church. He said, and young preacher, please don't allow the people to devalue you to the point that you start believing it. Sometimes the moment can be so traumatic for you, you believe you deserved it. Ooh. You believe that you don't deserve nothing beyond that moment. So because that moment was so traumatic for you, you live in that moment. And every response is based off that moment. My coach told me something I want to share with you. My coach told me something, Coach David Smith, phenomenal coach. He shared, every coach should have a coach just like every pastor should have a pastor. My coach shared something with me that was phenomenal. He said, Stephen, a lot of your decision making, you're making based off your 10-year-old self. This wasn't a therapist conversation. This was just a real conversation. He said, I noticed that a lot of your leadership mentality is because you don't want to let anybody down. Like in this moment, you felt like let down. He said, so here it is, because you are loyal to a fault. He says there are some movements that you're making, not as the healed you, but as the broken you. And I want to tell you something. Some of our moments can keep us in a broken state, even as pastors. We can be serving a church that is loving, but treat them as if they're a church that is broken. You can be in a marriage that is great, but because of your past relationships and you have not healed, you've not shared that with your spouse. You're still operating from the broken relationship, and you're still single. You're still an independent woman, or here it is, a man that believes he can never be vulnerable. And I want to share that with you because here it is. Our moments should never define us. You're more than a moment. As I get ready to get off, I got to eat. We're eating late tonight. I've been running all day, y'all. I've been running all day. I want to share this with you. I need you to know tonight, if you don't hear anything that I ever say, that the moment that you are in is part of a larger story. It's part of a novel. You're in this phenomenal novel, and you're stopping on the page. And I want you to move beyond the page. For a long while, I would read a book. And I used to be able to read books this big. This is my Bible, but I used to be able to read books this big. I'd read the Bible once every year. There was a point in my life that I got to a place where I would only make it to the third chapter. I'd always stop at the third chapter of the book, and I'd put the book down, and I find myself picking the book back up later. But I would always have to start over because I hadn't read it so long that I forgot what the previous chapter said. And I found myself stopping at, you got it, the third chapter again. One day, I had to challenge myself. And so I was getting ready to close the book at the third chapter. I want to share this with somebody. I think this is going to help somebody. We're getting ready to close the book, and I said, I'll pick it up tomorrow morning to continue reading it. And I had to do this to break my cycle. I read until the fourth chapter. I read into the fourth chapter. Why did I read into the fourth chapter, you ask? Because I built a muscle memory of quitting at the page that led to the third chapter. Some of us have allowed the moment to be so captivating because it was great. You had a great moment. Yours is not that you had a bad moment. You had a great moment. For a pastor, you preached at the National. Oh my God, you had late night, and they were standing in front, Doc. They were doing it. They were shouting. They were the folk were excited about what God has done for you, and they were receptive of the message. And you're believing that every moment should be like that. So you went back to your church, and they were sitting down, and not one of them got up and said an amen, and you were ready to throw in the towel because you just left Nationals. You just left state. You just left the district. And everyone else saw the gift God put in you, but you couldn't see it. You are on your job, and here it is. Here it is. You got to come back to a home that they don't seem like they appreciate you, but your job is telling you all the time how phenomenal you are. So now you're holding your wife to the same standard of your job, but you hadn't done nothing phenomenal in that house. You hadn't done nothing phenomenal in that house. You come home every night, bills are paid, but your wife don't even know how you feel about her anymore. She doesn't know that you're still attracted to her. She doesn't know that you still want her. She feels as if she's competing with your job. So at the job, you're in that moment, but you've allowed that moment to carry on in some other places. And I want to challenge you. Stop letting your moments define you. Stop letting your moments determine your response, because some of your responses are unfair to the people who are sharing your moments. Ooh. Some of your responses are unfair to the people that are sharing your moments. I'm going to tell you this, and I'm going to get off. I've done it. I said I'd be off at a certain time, and I did. Here it is. When me and Sister Garrett me and my wife Christina first got married, I am a person, and many people might not believe this, may not know this, because I'm very transparent with you all, and I've become this way. But I'm a person that I used to shut down. When I was processing, I'd shut down and I'd dive into work. I'm talking about the shop. I didn't just work 16 hours some days because I love cutting hair. I worked 16 hours because I was processing my information. But here it is. One day I start noticing something, and she didn't even bring this to me. I noticed it because someone complimented me on it. I was feeling some type of way about some stuff going on in my life. My marriage was good, but some stuff was going on in my life that I did not like. Church wasn't doing right. I'd been told that I wasn't called to a church that I had been really sacrificing to be the interim pastor, and they had told me they wanted me, all these different things, right? And so I was diving into the barbershop, giving my all to the barbershop. And someone came up to me, it was a young lady. She said, "Boy, I know your wife is blessed." She said, "You're such a joyful spirit. she was like, she said, she said, the way you talk to people, such a wonderful thing. But I realized that I hadn't been talking to my wife, high and by, I love you, all that stuff, but we really hadn't had conversation. And it was me being caught up in my feelings about something that had nothing to do with her. And so I allowed a moment to impact my marriage. And here it is, but my job was still getting full Stephen. There's a song by Gregory Porter. I love it. In the song, he says, don't be a fool. Don't give your days to someone else while not giving your nights to the one who loves you. He said, don't be a fool. He says, you will give your all to people who don't deserve it and give the least to the people who are in the moment with you. So as we get ready to get off tonight, I want to challenge you. Don't let your moments define you. I don't care how bad they are or how good they are. You have to become so disciplined, so mentally strong that when you fail, you're able to get back up because you know that failure did not determine you. When you sin, you're able to get back up. The Bible says, should we sin that grace may abound? In other words, he's saying, because you sin, should you keep sinning just so you can keep getting the grace? Or should at some point you say, I don't have to be bound by this? Don't let that failure, don't let that loss define you. Don't let that win define you. But here it is. You make up in your mind that your day is going to be good. I don't care what happens in the day. You choose to make your day good. That's what I want you to get. You choose to make your day good. You choose that you're going to have a happy marriage. Don't let the world determine how your marriage is going to be. You make the decisive decision that I'm going to have a successful marriage. You make the decisive decision that I'm going to enjoy my job. I just got through. I said I'd be off in 35 minutes, and I might be off before then. But here it is. I just left a fatherhood event, and one of the policymakers. He's not a senator. He's one of the folk who work very closely with Head Start. He said something that I want to share with you. He said something that his boss, who was a senator, said that I want to share with you. His boss said this. He said, when you're writing a bill, I forget the gentleman's name at this moment. He said, when you're writing a bill, he said, I want you to realize something. He said, you're new in this office. He said, there's two types of people. He said, there's a person that goes in there and believes everybody's against them. And every now and then, they're pleasantly surprised to find out there's some folk, one or two times in their term, they're pleasantly surprised to find out some folk aren't against them. He said, then there are the people who believe that everyone really wants positive change and wants to see something amazing. And he says, and every now and then, one or two times, he said they're sadly mistaken and find out that people are human and they have their own agendas too. He said, you making the decision of how you go and treat every single day is going to be the determination of if you're going to be pleasantly surprised a few times or sadly disappointed a few times. I want to encourage you. When you stop letting your moments define you, you can find yourself at a place where you're sadly disappointed just a few times, but you're pleasantly encouraged most times. Have a phenomenal night. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm about to go eat. Y'all enjoy y'all night and have a blessed week. I believe God has his best for you this year. I believe that God has miracles, signs, and wonders he wants to perform for you this year, but you got to embrace it. Have a phenomenal night. Be blessed.